Carolyn's journey has taken her from Minnesota to Washington State and finally to her home here in Ann Arbor. As you've seen in her gallery, her artistic interests are wide-ranging, rooted in exploration, color, shape, texture, surface, and variety of materials. What I find especially impressive about Carolyn is her spirit of creative exploration. Her mind is constantly thinking of new ways, new ideas, and directions to pursue. The pieces on display downstairs are just a small sample of her work, and I encourage you to explore her work further. After she speaks, we'll go downstairs and she will join us downstairs and we can continue the conversation. We know you will enjoy hearing Carolyn's talk about her creative journey, so please join Carolyn read Barritt.
Thank you. When I saw this space, I realized I could do something I have not really ever done before, which is to show two sides of my practice, because I both work abstractly and figuratively. So I've never shown them together before, and they're not really together, but at the same time. And what I'm going to talk about today is how they're, to me, similar, because I work on them in kind of the same sort of way. My process is kind of the same. With the representational figurative work, I start with a character or an element, a recognizable thing, a monkey, a bird, a tree, and then build the artwork around that. So I let the artwork sort of evolve organically, thinking about composition, value, space, all the things you think about when you do an artwork. With the abstract work, I do kind of the same thing, but instead of having a character or a thing you could recognize, I draw a gestural shape or a line, and then the artwork evolves from that. So, but it's the same thing. So I'm thinking about composition and value and space and depth. So it's all kind of the same, in a way, mindset, only one has things we recognize and one has things we don't recognize. Neither of the genres, I don't start with any plan, except for that single character or that single first mark. So I don't do a extensive study or a major plan, I guess, or a sketch. I just let the thing build organically in both sides. So with the monkeys and the figurative work, the characters evolve around that central character. Sometimes if I have something really specific in mind that I want to get across, I will do preliminary sketches, which I do in watercolor. And so then I can explore color and form. Those pieces I would do with just the representational work, because I can organize my thoughts more if I really want something. Those pieces tend to be a little tighter because I'm using work that I've already done and working from that. So that brings me kind of to how these are sort of different, where I have to kind of diverge or where the roads split. So with the representational work, it's I usually have a theme. I'm thinking about a theme. I have references. I will gather photo references. I'll take photos. I'll work directly from life. Like with the still lifes, I'm setting up a still life and painting directly from life. With the abstract work, I don't have any, I try not to have any visual references, because the minute I have a visual reference, those things start creeping in to the abstract work. Like I'll suddenly see myself drawing something that is a recognizable object. There's a freedom to doing these two things. So why I work in these two separate genres, I find that working in the abstract world kind of gives, it's a much more free way of working. It's gestural, it's expressive. You're not creating anything to look like anything, right? But I also find that expression and that freedom sort of filters back into the narrative work and makes that a little more free and loose when I get back to working on that. It sort of opens that up and lets me express myself a little more because I've been doing that in the abstract world, and then I can kind of bring that in. What I like about working figuratively is that I feel like I'm the director. I kind of create a stage, I create a scene, I can kind of direct the viewer into a place and give them a direction and I can guide them and sort of make something that I want them to think about or to feel. And what I like about the abstract world is it's completely opposite. I am giving the viewer freedom to create that themselves. So they go in and they can find things that they might, a landscape, something they might grip onto, or just a feeling. And I love that everyone interprets it completely differently, right? So when I create a representational work, I'm directing it. I can kind of guide how I want people to think about it. The abstract work, it surprises me every time what people will see in it and what they get out of it or how they feel about it. I can manipulate how people see things with titles. So if I title something a certain way with the abstract work, I can kind of guide someone into that space that I have envisioned. But I feel people can not read the titles and then they can get in there themselves. I can also title a figurative work a certain way to kind of guide someone's idea about things too. I don't work concurrently on these two genres at all. So I don't do an abstract work and then do a figurative work and do an abstract. I do just abstract work or just figurative work, and I work on it for a long time, like a year or 2 years, and then move back to the other genre, because I find that, especially working the two together, like I said before, the figurative work just keeps creeping. If I work on the figurative work and the abstract work, the figurative stuff just creeps in, and I can't help but draw that stuff in there. I tend to get really tight with that kind of thing, and the figurative stuff just takes over. So I work for quite a long time on one genre and then move back to the other. The work that's downstairs is the monkeys and birds and things I've been working on for the last 3 years, because I've been showing those and creating those and have had exhibitions of those for the last 3 years. So I'm kind of ready to go back to the abstract now. The last thing I'm going to talk about is I really enjoy working in both genres. They're completely different ways of thinking, and I like that separation of having those completely different mindsets. I find abstract work to be much more difficult than representational work because it depends solely on the elements of the composition, the color, the form, the line, to create a compelling artwork. With the representational work, it's a little easier to kind of fudge that. You know, you have things people can recognize in a stage, and you can create a narrative, and it still has to hold up in all those other ways, but it can sort of, it's a little easier in a way to create that for me. There's neither one do I like better than the other. It's kind of when I get to a point in doing one, I kind of yearn to do the other, to be more free or to get more tight and more real. Yeah, so I do a lot of thinking about it. So I'm looking at it a lot and then deciding whether I want to create another form with it, or there's a lot of thinking time. So a lot of stepping back and thinking time. But I do that with the figurative work too, because I'm letting it evolve naturally instead of working from a lot of preliminary sketches. So I think in both, I do a lot of thinking about that. It can take from just a matter of like a half hour, minutes to days if I'm really thinking about how I want to change it and alter the piece. But the ink drawings, those are done relatively quickly, and I work vertically. So the ink I use ink in different thicknesses. So some really drips a lot and some doesn't. So and also the medium dries really quickly. So both mediums I use dry very quickly. It's almost like I let it find me. So for the works that are downstairs, the monkeys, I was looking at a lot of paintings by Dutch animal painters from 1630s and 40s, like Melchior de Hondecoeter and Frans Hals. And at that time, the artists were going from painting things like dead fish in buckets and game paintings to live animals. So animals chasing each other, people chasing animals, animals fighting, animals flying, animals running. I mean, it was like chaos. And so when I started looking at that, I liked those paintings. They're really dramatic and there's so much going on. But I wanted to take some elements from those paintings, bring them into the present and flatten it, and like take what my goal was with those was to take one moment out of them, to make them calmer, to make them more evocative, and then also to brighten them up, almost to bring them into this century instead of the 17th century. So that just happened. So and then it just grows around that. So it almost is like it started with usually starts with one painting. And for that series, it was the one called Thief, which is a monkey and a parrot on a wall. And those two characters are actually lifted from Melchior de Hondecoeter's painting. And then I created everything else around them and changed everything and brought the bright colors in. And everything else developed off of that and from that. So I like the organic evolution of things instead of having them be really tight, because I can get really tight with my artwork. Because I actually teach classical drawing where you just draw everything really specifically. And I like to move away from that and have things be more expressive and more free. And the way I do that is by not planning the whole painting. I love titling. Yeah, I love it. I think it's both. Like some pieces, I just say I know that title. You know, I get done with it and I was like, oh, I'm gonna call that, Thief or whatever. But sometimes it eludes me completely. I just like playing with words, so I like titling. I don't find it terribly difficult, but sometimes I have lots of titles for them, and then I have to choose which title I really want to use. And then if I'm really lost, I'll do untitled, of course. And then there's little pieces downstairs on one of the abstract hallway, and they're titled by number. And those are done, I can talk a little bit about those. I do those, I have a stack of paper that size, and I do those, I do a whole bunch of those at one time. If I have a palette full of paint, I'll just draw those. And those are titled by number, just in sequence, instead of trying to title all of those. With the grid, you can stand in front of them and see the whole thing like a mural, kind of. But with the linear, you do have to walk along them. I kind of like having people walk along them. I think it's nice to have that sequence of moving along and seeing them as they change. It's a little bit of a challenge to hang them because when you do a grid, you can stand back from the grid and say, oh, I don't like that one next to that one, and I want to move this over here, and this one doesn't look good next to this one. But the line, it's because you can't really get back from them, or here, you can't really get back and see them all. It's a little bit more of a challenge to hang. But I like them going, forcing someone to march all the way along them. A lot of them I do just as an experiment to find how material work with another material. Like, can I use graphite through this ink, or can I put paint over this other material? And then, or I'll try a color combination. And those are just reference for myself. I have a tendency when I am having a lot of trouble is everything just turns black. I just make everything's black, just black. So a lot of them just turn like one color, or a little bit of rough. I just toss those. But most of them are mostly just for me for reference, but some of them turn out in a way I think other people might enjoy. So, anyone else have any questions? I listen to music, but I'm always thinking about stuff, so I might see something somewhere and that just kind of sticks in my head, and I keep thinking about that, and I'm like, well, I can't let go of that, so I'm gonna explore that more. That's mostly what happens. No, I think about it visually, I think. Yeah, I think about it more visually. Yeah, because then I start thinking about, I like that one element, I wanna make that blue, and I wanna pull that into this thing, and then how can I change that and make that into something that I will have fun with. During COVID, I set the camera up and took pictures of myself in front of one of my backdrops. And so then I started doing that for a few years in a row after that, which I would just spend one afternoon doing this, like running back and forth in front of the camera. It felt sort of freeing in a way. The pieces that are in the figurative side downstairs is the longest I've worked on one theme, because I had 2 solo shows in a row, and I had to, so it took a year to prepare for the first show. And then the second show I had to create more work because it was in a much larger space. So I had to expand the artwork. So it took 3 years to get to now with the artwork that's there. So I usually spend about a year, 8 months a year on one thing, one theme, one genre, and then move over to the next one. It's hard with working with a gallery doing that, because they really want you to be in one little box, because you're easier to sell if you just do one sort of thing. Luckily, I work with a gallery in Pittsburgh who just lets me do what I want, and will show pretty much what I am working on at that time when I have a solo show come up. So I've had representational shows there and abstract shows there, and I've been very lucky that way. So, but I like the freedom of being able to choose what I want to work on, because I have a lot of interests and I like to express those. So. And I think they do play off of each other. And I've been working hard on trying to make the representational work more expressive, so I've been pushing that and flattening it, and push it more gesturally, more not abstract, but more abstracted. Yeah, and I think doing the abstract stuff helps me do that.